Pounders, welcome back. Today we got Nick with us. We're going to be discussing the winners and the losers of free agency, who is affected, and where these ADPs are going to land. Which players are still values right now, who's moving up, and who's moving down. Nick, in the Michael Wilson jersey, you're an absolute sicko. Welcome to the live stream.
You know I had to do it at some point. But
It
boy,
was
we got a
coming.
lot. We got a lot of stuff to talk, man. There's been a lot of news, and we have trades going on right before the show with Deontay Johnson then traded to the Panthers. I mean,
that's a bad spot. It's got to be. It has to be. For seventh round, yeah, they don't really get a large. They don't get much for him at all, huh?
yeah, I feel for the guy. It's a tough spot for him. That offense last year didn't really look conducive, and yeah, I mean, it kind of came out of left field. Like, I mean, a few other, a few other things that happened, the day before. But I definitely didn't see this one coming.
There were rumblings about potentials with Pittsburgh and Fields, and then when they bring in Russ, obviously those trade talks probably ended pretty abruptly. But Deontay Johnson to Panthers, he's going around pick, 100, 101?
Yeah.
I can pull up. Where do we think Deontay Johnson's going to move to now? He gets the Panthers 92, so he's actually risen with some of the talk.
Muscle news. Yeah.
And now
he's gonna fall. He's gonna fall a good amount, I think.
Definitely behind Myers, I would say.
Yeah, he was pretty much grouped into that tier of receivers before the Russell Wilson news, if I'm not wrong.
That's true. That's true.
But it's a weird move from them. You would think outside of Pickens, they don't really have any weapons. So
good for Pat Fry.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, and Freiermuth. Yeah, besides those two though, like they're gonna have to draft a receiver or do something. It can't just be Pickens.
Yeah, and Johnson, it's interesting because he definitely could have been serviceable for Russ too, to sort of give him away for almost nothing's kind of tough look. But yeah, it's something I brought up yesterday is if Deontay Johnson leaves, like you are going to get you're going to get a huge bump for Pat Fry, even if they do bring in a rookie. Going at pick 145, and he's someone you're putting in, usually putting him in 3 tight end builds. But man, Pat Fry up to maybe a 20 pick rise from 145 to like the 125 range.
Yeah, I guess you could put him into that Schultz range. He does seem like he's going to be like a nice safety blanket for Wilson. I mean, we'll see. A lot of speculation. I mean, there's still free agents on the market, so they move on from Deontay. Who's to say they don't bring in not a Calvin Ridley, but someone like Tyler Boyd, and then we're back to kind of square one.
Dude, that's the Patriots right there. You get rid of Myers and you sign Juju. It's just like the carousel.
Yeah, but sometimes the organizations they know better than we do, and they maybe think that players need a fresh start somewhere else, and it's not working out for one place. So,
see, you're smart by saying sometimes. You are smart by saying sometimes they know better than we do. Like the Jonathan Mingo, we knew that was a bad pick. We knew. Second round. So, are you cooking Mingo at all in Carolina?
No, I don't really have too much of him. I've been staying away from like all the Carolina receivers for the most part throughout Bestball.
Yeah, bad offense.
I think for obvious reasons.
How about Pollard and Spears? We're seeing Spears take a nosedive right now. I've seen mixed reviews on people that either like Pollard or don't like Pollard's landing spot.
Why not? I mean, I think, look, he's going to obviously split some work with Spears. It's definitely not going to be like a Pollard show, but I think he kind of needs, that. Um, he's not a
Yeah,
guy that you can't just beat up Tony Pollard for the whole season. I mean, he has to have somebody take off the weight a little bit.
but on it, is Tennessee a good landing spot with we're expecting what? Mainly gonna be playing from behind this season, second year under Will Levis. Now change of pace back. Spears that can probably take a decent sized workload, 30 to 40%
Yeah,
from Pollard.
yeah, because Spears is
Is
going to
he
excel in third downs and on passing
yeah.
plays more than Pollard. I'm guessing will. So yeah, negative game scripts aren't great for him, but I still think he's gonna get a decent amount of volume. I mean, we're talking at least like 15 carries a game. But we
You
kind of saw
you
that in Dallas, and he
yeah.
wasn't too efficient on 15 carries for the most part. Like he would get 15
Yeah.
carries, 60 yards, and
It's in 6 touchdowns, dude. 6
yeah,
touchdowns.
yeah, and it's not the best offensive line.
Tony Pollard or James Conner?
So it's tough because in my head I'm thinking Tony Pollard because I like him from a skill point of view, but I think James Conner might be in a better situation.
Let's go. Let's go.
Plus, I'm wearing an Arizona jersey, so I mean, I kind of have to go with Conner, right?
How high would Hollywood Brown go up if Casey signs him? Oh god, it's like
Anybody will.
it's so minimally better than like NVS. You want to see I would love to see Curtis Samuel sign at KC, but
Even if you throw a guy like Curtis Samuel to the Chiefs, everyone's going to be like foaming at the mouth to draft him. So it doesn't really even matter who it is.
correct. Correct. He would get a rise. He would probably go and he would get like a 30 pick rise plus.
Yeah, for sure.
Where is he going? He's in 110. He'd probably go in the 70 range.
But
But
it's hard to guess these things because there's just been so much that's happened in the last 2 days that I can't even wrap my head around yet. I mean, who saw the Packers releasing Aaron Jones and then signing Josh Jacobs? I mean, I definitely didn't.
yeah, with a year left on his contract. Yeah.
Although I was a little happy when I got the release news because I was drafting teams with both Jacobs and Aaron Jones because my
Mhm.
exposures to them were both high. And I was like, well, it's not going to be great for fantasy if they're on the same team. I mean,
Right.
they're both great players, but, they both can't eat at the same time.
True. How about Derrick Henry to Baltimore? He's someone that I don't know if people have been catching on in the late night drafts. I've been sneakily adding shares to Derrick Henry because of the potential landing spots of Houston, Dallas, Baltimore were the
Yeah.
three main ones for these free agents. Obviously, Aaron Jones is in there too. I have a good bag of Aaron Jones. He ends up in Minnesota. We'll see what they end up doing at QB. This is still a team that has a lot of weapons, and he could be fine. There's not like there's really big talent behind him.
I was getting
Um,
nervous for Henry for a little bit. I mean, we had every single running back pretty much was signed right before him. I mean, we had
mhm,
Giants signing Singletary. I mean, there were guys that shouldn't have been signed before Henry, and
mhm.
he lands in a great spot though with Baltimore with that high octane offense. Um, it's going to be
Yeah,
interesting on the goal line because he is a huge goal line back. That's where I think a lot of his value is, and we do know that Lamar can run the ball. So I don't
but
think
they
they're going
don't
to
tush
opt him with that
push.
too much.
They don't tush push like
Yeah,
Gus
but even
Edwards.
option plays, fake
Yeah,
handoffs, keepers, stuff like that, I think's in the playbook for a guy that can use his legs. Um, as opposed
yeah,
to when they had Tannehill, who's not really trying to run into the end zone much.
for sure. Well, last year, no. And in previous years, he was like a 7 touchdown. He could get there, 7 rushing touchdowns. I think he back to back
He's
seasons.
still going to be good. And I mean, look,
He's
Gus Edwards put up a huge amount
yeah,
of touchdowns, and he's
yeah.
way above Gus Edwards in that role.
Dude,
So
having a red zone role in Baltimore on a team that wants to run the ball, and maybe Lamar helps Derrick Henry too. Um,
I mean, I
yeah.
feel really bad for the other Baltimore RB shareholders like Mitchell and Hill because those running backs seem a little dead now in terms of value. outside of being
Yeah,
handcuffs.
I agree. Hill will, at least in the beginning of the season, will be change of pace slash third down. But I agree. I think when Keaton Mitchell comes back towards the end of the season, you might get, you might get him in there,
Yeah,
change of pace back, and then Hill will be probably phased out mostly when Keaton Mitchell's back and healthy, if that happens at some point.
yeah. I mean, there's not enough for all three of them, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
Mitchell's better than Hill when he's going to be healthy. So
Yeah. Mixing to the Texans, Vape wants to know, does his ADP rise? I
I think a
think
lot of
people are
people are
gonna
out
like the
on
landing
Mixon.
but I think they're gonna like the landing spot.
Yeah, sure. Why not? What's not to love? I mean, he's going to be the RB1 there. You don't. I'm not worried about Damian Pierce, and you'll get volume there. But I think people are out on him in terms of like his efficiency from last season, and so that's what people are kind of iffy about. I don't mind him.
Yeah. Last season, I think's tough to sort of take into account. I think you have to take into account, like, everything that happened with the Burrow injury, um, T. Higgins just it was kinda ugly last season, so
Yeah,
I don't think he ended up doing too bad, and in Houston, he can be a 3 down back, and with that being said, I'll be drafting him over James Conner, and I like the James Conner click.
sure.
I think he can go ahead of Tony Pollard,
They
probably
got
ahead
to
of
move ahead of Eckler too.
yeah, he's getting a big rise, to be honest. I would put him in this, like, 65 range. I'd put him ahead of Jason. I'd steam him up pretty far.
Yeah, there's still a lot of guys with question marks, like even Alvin Kamara. We don't really
Yeah,
fully know
yeah,
that one yet. I mean, Eckler being in Washington, I mean, it's okay, but I think Brian Robinson is still gonna get a lot more
yeah,
work than Eckler, or
yeah.
not a lot more work than him, but he's still gonna be involved heavily in that offense. It's not just gonna be Eckler, the Eckler show there.
Definitely not. I could see that one being like a 60-40 split.
Yeah,
Um, what do
we
you
also
think
have
about
Zach Moss going to the Bengals now.
God? Oh, god.
Um, it's I guess people it's better than Joe Mixon, but he is he's an underrated back. I mean, he showed what he could do when he had to take the load over when Jonathan Taylor was out. He wasn't bad for the most part. He was putting up some big numbers.
He had some impressive games. Are you gonna be drafting him over Chase Brown?
I only have like 5 bullets left for the big board, so I don't really
Yeah.
have too much room to do. But
Mhm.
I think where Zach Moss's ADP is, I mean, you're getting a better value on him over Chase Brown, so that would
Okay.
be my
I'd
lean.
ag I'd agree with that. Towards the end of the season, which running back would you want?
That's tough to say because I think Chase Brown's still gonna have a decent role on that offense, but it's not gonna be as nice as I think people were hoping. Like Mixon was just gonna
Mhm.
get cut, and Chase Brown was just gonna be the guy they leaned on. Now that you have Zach Moss there, I mean, it's kind of a complicated timeshare.
They were in my opinion, they were always going to add someone, and that's why I told people just as recent as 2 days ago, or maybe even yesterday, like, you wanna have 8% plus of Chase Brown, because if Mixon does get released, you just don't know what's gonna happen, and he's someone that we ranked purple on the draft guide for that reason, that he has that potential upside. It's kinda like the question mark player risk reward. If Mixon does get cut, this dude's gonna get a big rise, but at the same time, same day, you don't even get to celebrate those Chase Brown shares. Zach
Yeah,
Moss gets traded to Cincy. I would probably still want Chase Brown towards the end of the season,
and
but
Zach Moss has some past injury issues. I mean, he hasn't stayed healthy
Mhm,
like the entire past few seasons, so he's
mhm,
missed time. So I
yeah.
mean, there's probably going to be a case where Chase Brown will be the only back that they have for
Do you
a stretch.
if you had to lean one way with how the carries are gonna go between Moss and Brown, would it be like 60-40 for Moss? Do you think Brown's gonna be more of the explosive change of pace type back?
Yeah, I think you're pretty close to what it would look like. I do think they're going to probably give Zach Moss earlier work, first and second downs.
Mm,
But if Zach Moss starts, being a dud like he was in Buffalo, like I could see them just fading him out, and then Chase Brown could step in and shine, you
yeah,
know, and set the
yeah,
stage for him. It's up to him though to perform from that point.
true. Logan, welcome to the live stream, man. Says, what do you think about Eckler to Washington? He's
Yeah, so
currently
we,
going
we
at pick
kind of we kind
82.
of just talked about it. I mean, I'm not really going to be in on Eckler just because Brian Robinson, given I think that he's still going to be a major factor in that running game, and I think Eckler
Yeah,
is kind of going to be almost a complementary piece to Brian Robinson.
I
Is
agree.
how I feel.
I agree. At pick 82, it's way too rich. You got to think at this time and point, Brian Robinson Jr. is going to be the more effective running back on first and second down.
I'd rather chase volume. Like I'm looking at names like Joe Mixon. Like give me a guy that might be 3 down and getting 20 carries as opposed to Eckler who
Yeah.
may get 8 or 10 touches.
Yeah.
In a schemed offense around him.
And this could be interesting. Brian Robinson Jr. or Jalen Warren, with Eckler being there in Washington, and then obviously with Warren having Najee Harris. Who
I would
would
probably
you lean there?
I'd probably lean Warren because it's Arthur Smith. And we know like he just loves to run the ball, so there's probably plenty of volume for 2 running backs with his system. And they just traded away a receiver, so now it's even more run happy than it was
Arthur
before.
Smith loves his backups. Look at Jonnu Smith. Probably a good one to bring up. Jonnu Smith to the Dolphins. Oof. Man, seems like a pretty key landing spot for
Yeah,
Jonnu, and he's
yeah.
still going. Man,
The
he's
past few drafts I've done, I've
201.
I've, I've actually been reaching a little bit on him just because I don't want someone else to reach up. So I was kind of
Mhm.
grabbing him around like the 180 something range,
Yep.
assuming that's maybe where he's going to rise anyway.
Yep. That's where I've been getting my shares for like around 180, early 180.
Especially over Waller. Like, give me John Yu on the Dolphins over Darren Waller,
Mhm.
who's made of glass.
Now Mike Gesicki as well. Oh God, Mike Gesicki gets the landing spot of the Bengals. Is this Irv Smith all over again from last year, where this dude's gonna rise to like 150?
I mean, I hate it because I actually believed in Tanner Hudson. Like, I thought he could have been something
Rip.
this year. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe they can still run 2 tight ends in this offense.
Yeah.
But he's clearly the better tight end over Tanner Hudson.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
Yes.
he should be good. It's Joe Burrow. So, I mean, there's not really much to knock there.
Where well, let's say you're starting over with your shares. Don't take into account you only have a few drafts left. Where would you be comfortable reaching on Mike Gesicki? I haven't jumped in a recent draft with this news.
What's his ADP now?
If you guys have, let me know where people are starting to draft him in or at. He's probably in the 200s, I would assume. Yeah, 239. It's probably not fully updated just yet.
So maybe like right around John Yu. Like if someone took John Yu and I want a flyer, and
Mhm.
I'd move him up like right behind him at this point.
Would you like Jonnu better than Mike Gesicki right now?
Would I
And
like
we have
John
the
Yu over Mike Gesicki right now? Yeah, I think so.
okay.
I think he's the better tight end skill wise,
Okay.
and I think it's still a good offense. Like the Dolphins are just as like throw happy as the Bengals are.
How about with the potential of T. Higgins leaving Cincy, requesting a trade? Would that change anything?
Yeah, now you're throwing in some hypotheticals that are a little
Got
different
gotta
for me,
ask.
right? I
Gotta
mean,
ask the
yeah,
hard hitting questions.
yeah. Without Higgins and then without Boyd, I mean, he's the number 2 at this point. I mean, they're obviously gonna bring in somebody, but
Yeah.
you gotta draft the players based on where they're at given that time. I think,
Yeah.
but I don't know. If Higgins does leave, they're gonna have to bring in somebody.
Ben Ben has been hurt before. We can feel the pain. Says, I have no faith in a Cincinnati tight end.
And then Gerald Everett just signed, didn't he?
Yeah, Gerald Everett got added, and that's he got added to the Bears.
So I mean, it's not really that great for him. He's obviously behind Komet. It's an interesting tight end room.
Yeah, it's probably not the best news for Komet as well, especially when you get like the Pat Fry positive news of no Deontay Johnson. Obviously, they're going to add someone, but Deontay
Yeah,
Johnson in previous years was like a target hog.
right. Yeah, there's better teams. There's way better teams he could have been on.
Yeah. Darnell Mooney. Have to. My number one highest exposure wide receiver at 28%,
Wow.
just based on how I was drafting him with my teams with a lot of rookie wide receivers, just padding the room with someone that was going to be, I figured he'd end up as the third, like a wide receiver 3 on a team. And it ends up being true. Like you get Drake London, you get Kyle Pitts. They're both going to have higher target shares than Darnell Mooney. But yeah, and probably Bijan could end up with a higher target share as well. But there is no true number 2 right now in Atlanta, and he gets the bag.
Yeah, and he's got Kirk Cousins, who we know, found success with Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson, and that was a three-headed receiver room. So uh, it's definitely positive.
I found this on Twitter earlier today, tweeted out by Warren Sharp. Nearly 40% of deep targets to Darnell Mooney have been inaccurate in his career. Over that span, the number 1 most accurate QB on deep targets, 20 yards plus down the field, is Mooney's new QB, Kirk Cousins.
So we're saying Fields is bad.
We're saying Fields is not great, and Cousins, he's got that dog in him.
Now,
Achilles or not.
Cousins has to stay healthy. Can't rule
Of
that out yet.
course. Of course.
I mean,
Of
this is
course.
like could be Aaron Rodgers all over again.
Aaron Rodgers was healthy entering the season, though.
True, but he had injury issues prior to the Jets.
Yeah.
And Kirk Cousins is getting up there. Not quite Aaron Rodgers' age, but he's not the youngest, most spry quarterback.
Are you worried about Rodgers or Kirk this season? They're not, they're not like they're not mobile QBs. Do you take that into account at all?
I mean, you're just at that point you're just playing for what's the upside. I mean, you can't. I would never draft around players getting hurt because if you do that, you're gonna either miss on players or it's a hard bet to make. But I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people do consider that when they take into account maybe Jet players, especially Rodgers. I mean, I've been firing up Garrett Wilson because I think we're gonna see something this year. I think Rodgers is like manifesting it. I mean, he's gonna be in his dark room. He's gonna bring it to us for sure.
I love Garrett Wilson in the first round. He's one of my higher exposed players that I'm actually reducing shares on surrounding players and targeting Garrett Wilson. So I'm right there with you on that click. But because of the Kirk news going to Atlanta, you're getting a crazy rise out of London. You're getting a crazy rise out of Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
It should probably make you feel a little better about those Bijan shares. Maybe Bijan should get a small bump up. I know he's already at pick 7, or he's at pick 8, 7.3. So maybe he is getting a small boost here because of that. But how far are you willing to?
I haven't done enough drafts since all this news broke, so I don't really know how like the landscape works and where players are getting picked from, like above certain guys. Like I'm interested to see where London gets picked like ahead of certain receivers in that range, like Devonta Smiths and I'm just naming some of the guys that I knew that were drafted like right before him around that 3-4 turn.
He's going in this range now. He's going in this range. I saw someone yesterday pick him at 13, but mostly around this 25 range is where I'm seeing him reached on. And
I would say
Yeah.
there's definitely some players I don't mind taking London over because I'm just not into them. But there are other
Mhm.
guys that I think would be hard for me to click off for London at this point, even with Kirk Cousins news. But
In I've been sort of drafting this way. In this group, for me, it always sort of looked like this, and I skipped out, and then maybe like Mike Evans.
yeah,
Um,
even like Drake London over Mike Evans is. I mean, I get it. He's younger. We haven't seen Drake London's like true like ceiling yet, but
mhm.
that's I
Eh,
guess that's kind of what holds me back is not knowing it and what it can be.
yeah, you're definitely paying for what you haven't seen yet, but you've seen flashes of it, and now they're actually getting him some help too, not just at QB, but even adding in a second wide receiver like Mooney. And they're probably and maybe they're not even done yet adding to this wide receiver group.
I
So
actually think when we went down to Miami, Drake London popped off for like 140 yards that week.
yeah, he had a crazy game out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But Kyle Pitts,
Um,
how far are you willing to chase Kyle Pitts up the board? Because he was someone that was in the early 100s to start, and
yeah.
I've been making the change, uh, pretty early to drafting him over some of these other tight ends, just because of closing line value, basically,
Right.
sort of seeing that trending that way, and then the potential of Atlanta, the talks of them getting a QB. I
So
try to
my
get
thing
ahead of the
with
ADP.
Pitts is I don't mind reaching on him or bringing him up this board because he's surrounded by a lot more players that are like question marks. Like
Mhm,
I'm seeing guys like Nick Chubb's name here. Like yeah, of course I drag Pitts above him, but there's probably plenty more of those kind of players. But the difference between that and London is you're dragging him into a group of players that really aren't question marks as
mhm.
much. For Pitts, you're not he's so much later that it's in my opinion okay to bring him up into like past certain players in this range.
Dude, tight ends, I 100% agree. Tight ends in this range feel like very good clicks still. Like, that is still true today. Pitts
But
over Bowers?
even other positions, like you have guys like I mean, look, I know Tajay Spears ADP hasn't really like fully gone down, but I
No,
mean,
it's
we're
probably
talking about would I
90s.
rather someone like Pitts over now Tajay Spears? Like, of course. I mean, there's more than Christian Watson. I mean, yeah, I'd take
Mhm.
Pitts over Christian Watson too. There's multiple skill positions that I'd rather Kyle Pitts over in this range.
How about tight end to tight end? Pitts versus Ingram versus Bowers.
Yeah, it's got to be Pitts.
Yeah. How about if Ridley leaves, would that change anything for you with Evan Ingram?
They do have Gabe Davis now, though. So, um, uh, yeah, if Ridley leaves, I'd still say Pitts over Ingram. I think they're
Wow.
similarly like in terms of their skill set and
Mhm,
athletic both of these guys are. I think Pitts is better off being the number two in his offense as opposed to
mhm.
Ingram. Maybe some games being the number three. He's gonna fluctuate between the other pieces.
Yeah, and dude, Kirk Cousins, I can't say it enough. Kirk Cousins loves his tight ends. Loves his tight ends.
We
Dude.
didn't talk about Singletary yet.
All right. All right. Your time to shine. Vinny, if you're in the live stream, let us hear it. The Singletary truth. Dude, he's a mega winner right now. Is it gonna stay that way though after the draft? Is my worry.
It's interesting. I think he's so underrated. It was good for the Giants. Really, come on. He
Dude,
is underrated.
he's been serviceable. He's been serviceable.
Yeah, for what he is, I would say it's a positive. For
Yeah.
what he's able to do for teams, and he's going to be on the cheap compared to what Barkley got in for the Eagles. I mean, I'm not
Mhm,
saying he's going to be better than Barkley. No one's saying that, but given what they had to do, Singletary, he's not a bad pickup for them.
yeah.
It's going to be tough sledding on that offense a little bit, but I am interested to see how like Gray fits in with him. Maybe they're gonna use them both. Because I do think Singletary might need a little bit of assistance. You know,
What's the chances this team takes a running back before round 4? Like a round 3 guy? It
It's
seems
possible.
pretty high.
It is possible. I wouldn't mind Ray Davis being a Giant.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So this one's interesting, and this one is not like I can't fully celebrate the Devin Singletary free agency win just yet because I think there is risk in the
He could
draft.
have also landed in way worse places than the Giants. He could have ended up being like somebody's complimentary back. Like he could have been on the Patriots behind Stevenson. I mean, instead of Gibson, maybe they bring in Singletary. Like there's worse places he could have landed. That's what I'll say in terms of
Definitely.
his fantasy outlook.
And look at last year when you had what, Dameon Pierce in that range of running backs, and he's the one that wins free agency, and he wins the combine, the draft, I should say, as well, because Algier was right in that same range, and then Atlanta drafts Bijan. So, like,
Yeah,
you're going to have movement with these running backs that are so packed, like, so close together. You're going to get some more clarity of their situation. And right now, today, Singletary is a free agency winner for sure.
yeah.
Singletary's 900 plus yards 3 years in a row. It's
It's
yeah,
not league winning numbers, however. That's the only
yeah,
problem. But it's good enough to be your running back 4 or 5 on your team for sure. When you need a guy to just be able to punch in some numbers for you when you have bye weeks and such. That's where I think he's a great addition. But I wouldn't be expecting don't expect 30 points out of this guy. It's probably not going to happen.
now Zamir White, another one that I think you can really celebrate today, but there might be a little bit of risk coming into the draft. And these are 2 players that both can be pretty big winners if their team doesn't draft someone of substance in, you know, the the second, third round, which Jonathan Brooks is really the only guy that's expected to go into the second round. Maybe Benson sneaks into the back of the second, but kind of seen as a third round guy.
I'm not as worried as I am with Singletary. I think Zamir White is a better player. I think he's shown that. His numbers season long aren't going to reflect that because Jacobs was there. But
Right.
from like a game to game like perspective, I mean, he was putting up some monster games for them
Yeah.
when Jacobs wasn't healthy. And I mean, if he can keep doing that, I think the guy is awesome.
Yeah, he's gotta be one of the bigger winners of free agency right now. Where do you think he rises to in this group of running backs? Would you take him over? And what's interesting, Jonathan Brooks, I think Jonathan Brooks is a sneaky winner today too, with Dallas just doing nothing in free agency.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
that
look, there's still time for them to do some stuff. I mean, Rico Dowell may still be on the radar. I mean, who knows?
right. But I think that would be even better for Jonathan Brooks's potential landing spot of Dallas if they resign
Yeah.
Dowdle. Um, so I think he's actually a sneaky winner as well. And I haven't seen too many people talking about that. But
Yeah.
Zamir
I've been
White,
off I've been off of Brooks though, just because I don't like rookies that are coming in with, a bad injury like he has and not knowing exactly how that's gonna shape up for him. But
the
yeah,
ADP, I think I tweeted out the other day. I think the ADP is very tightly it's it's very tightly tied to the Dallas landing spot with the amount of risk
would you be
you're
surprised if
taking
they
on.
brought in like Jalen Wright with how he performed at the combine over Brooks? Like, would that ever surprise you?
Like Dallas?
Yeah.
Any running back, rookie running back landing in Dallas, would not would not surprise me at all. Trey
Right.
Benson, Brooks, Jalen Wright. They obviously need to add someone. There's still free agents left on the board as well. But where would you move Samir White real quick in this group? Would you draft Samir White over DeAndre Swift?
Um, I've been pretty comfortable just kind of taking Zamir White when he's at the range he's at. But
Mhm.
like my exposure's pretty high to him, so I've always been getting him pretty much around ADP, if not maybe a handful of picks before that. But
Yeah.
definitely over. I would definitely move him above like Trey Benson.
Okay.
And then, I prefer him over Chase Brown too, but I think that's the range where you as a person can kind of make your own takes. If you really
Mm.
like the Chase Brown narrative, like go ahead. If you like the Swift and Chicago narrative, go ahead. But yeah, I'm probably clicking on Zamir over even Chase Brown personally.
It seems more likely that Las Vegas would go the draft route, which could, you know, maybe that is better for Zamir White.
Yeah, I'm just buying into how he looked last year. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I thought he looked good.
Mhm.
Performed well when Jacobs wasn't there. They decided not to bring Jacobs back, so a lot of the writing seems to be,
Yeah.
you know, um, what I expected them to do and stick with Zamir. Like I don't think I think he's their guy.
Yeah. I like Chase Brown just because of like the explosive plays. I think he doesn't need a ton of touches to get
Yeah.
to potentially, hit a home run ball.
Well, yeah,
So
you guys also fell in love with Chase Brown since last year. I mean,
yeah,
there's a Chase
yeah,
Brown
no
bias.
doubt.
It's like it's
I'd agree with that. I could see that. I'd probably rank it somewhere closely like this here. Ty Chandler's got to fall, right?
oh yeah. Yeah,
Like,
he might be a 200th round pick at this point. Right?
yeah, no, I agree there. Right there with Rashawn Megafaller, he's been going around 155. I've gotten Khalil Herbert at 189
I mean, just look
the
how
other
messed up
day.
these ADPs are at this point. I mean, Ty Chandler needs to be way below Zach Moss. Zach Moss needs to be way above Ty Chandler. Like the whole board needs to be like reflipped and
Yeah,
organized.
and that's why I've been working on the CSV rankings that are going to be coming out to the Patreon members as well as the YouTube memberships. It's going to really organize this board and tell you, all right, who's a mega value right now? Tyler Algier, still so crazy that this dude has not risen. He's at pick 164. He's arguably the number one handcuff and will have a change of pace role. He's just like, they're not going to add to this running back group. You wouldn't think
Yeah,
it. And we've seen crazier things like Seattle drafting 7 running backs last year, but
it's
you
just
can
not
make
as
that
sexy.
inference.
It's not as sexy click. You're rooting for Bijan's fall. Like you're rooting for the guy to get hurt. I mean, that's the only way Tyler Algier becomes relevant.
Right. But look where we were drafting Elijah Mitchell last year at 130. You're getting a 30 pick discount on that. And he has a change of pace. He's gonna get what 125 plus touches. That's pretty good for guaranteed in this range, and then baked in with the upside of a potential injury. I think that's fine for this range and even earlier.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. He's actually probably you'd be better off starting for the Giants, I think, over Singletary, if I'm being honest, based on how he played his rookie year.
I'd
Broke a
I'd
thousand
agree.
yards.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think you're getting like a probably a decent 20 pick discount. Like he would be probably in this range for me, right behind right. So
Yeah.
that's just an interesting one. Um, whoever we haven't touched on a ton of people. Let's go through some of this. Let me refresh this, make sure we didn't get anything else pop in.
We talked about Ty Chandler, so we know pretty much how we feel about Aaron Jones going to the Vikings, right?
Yeah, for movement wise, I don't think we've fully unpacked that yet, but it's tough to tell if it's gonna be good or bad right now based on it's definitely not the best. Let's put it that way. It's disappointing. You'd rather him on Green Bay with a
Yeah.
little more known.
No,
But
yeah,
now
you're
going
right.
behind Henry, he's still going to be drafted ahead of Kamara. He's still going to be drafted ahead of Spears. In my opinion, maybe he falls a little bit closer, but he's only 7 picks away from Stevenson. I'd still take him over David Montgomery, who you think Gibbs is going to have the larger role at the end of the year. taking him over Pollard. So, like, does he fall that far?
Honestly, he really shouldn't. I mean, I get it. Henry moving above him, or if Henry was already above him, I'm not entirely sure. He might have already been. I was clicking on Jones more than guys like Henry and Jacobs because
Mhm.
I didn't expect that to happen. And he's a guy that's 26
Same.
years old. He's young. He was on an offense without any question marks at the
Mhm.
time. Um, it is a downgrade, like you said, to go to Minnesota from Green Bay. But at the same time, he's still going to be the feature back in that offense. We're talking like he's still going to have the same amount of volume he got at Green Bay. It just might not be, the offense might not be as efficient as Green Bay
Right.
is.
Right. If you guys are just joining us, go down, slap the like on the live stream. We're gonna be doing, or I'm gonna be doing. I won't put Nick into this. We do a 24-hour live stream if we hit 2,000 subscribers before NFL kickoff. We're putting it back on
Okay,
the.
I might jump in to keep you company.
Yeah, you can. You can. It's gonna be you, me, and some coffee.
You might have
Yeah,
to rotate, co-hosts.
JSN really hasn't fallen that far that fast based on the Lockett news too. I thought Brian Thomas Jr. would have already passed him. It's happening in the next day or so, but I would put him behind even Godwin behind D Hop with that news.
I don't know about Diop, but Godwin I agree with. I just like JSN's. He's way younger than Hopkins, and I mean the Lockett thing wasn't great for him, but I definitely can see him moving into the second role there over Lockett, based on
Mhm.
what we know.
Yeah.
Like he was a good receiver out of college, super talented. He has the skill set to do so.
This is a tricky one for me. Someone
But
I
his
was
ADP is
and
still a little too rich. I think I don't want to click on a receiver if he's available. Like I might want to be taking like Aaron Jones even over him.
right. I'd honestly just rather a 1-for-1. I would rather Pitts over JSN. It might sound wild, but for a value, for like just pure value, I think it's a bad click.
Especially if you miss him like right before Pickens, because like now Pickens is like that's where like the mountain kind of drops a little bit for these
Mhm.
receivers. If you miss Pickens and maybe Brian Thomas, based on his potential ceiling, like once you
Yeah.
miss those guys, I feel like you might want to move into another position and let some other people, land on some grenades.
How about Deontay Johnson? How does that affect George Pickens and his ADP? Already creeping towards Christian Kirk.
It should be positive, but Pickens is going to get a lot of focus if they don't bring in a good enough receiver. They're going to be throwing like double coverage on the
Yeah.
guy every game if he's the
Y
only guy that they know is that can catch a football.
You can only throw so many balls to George Pickens. That's he kinda makes his money on the outside, so,
And he's a
yeah.
guy that gets frustrated very fast. So when things aren't going Pickens' way, like he barely will block for his team. He just basically like just walks up to guys and puts his hands on their pads. That's it. That's all you get from the guy.
I'm not convinced that Deontay Johnson moving on to Carolina is actually good for George Pickens. We'll see what they do at receiver. There's still plenty of time left to bring in free agents and whatnot. Right now, I would rather George Pickens over Jordan Addison.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Jordan Addison, just the unknown at QB is kind of worrisome. And then end of season, I do Robinson being in the picture.
1 second. I think am I lagging a little bit here? Keep coming in and out. I don't
No,
know if
you're
it's
good.
me. Okay.
It's probably me. Let me see.
Okay. I wasn't
No, we're
sure.
good. But yeah, George Pickens, and that's just a small 1-for-1. I would rather Pickens over Addison. I think you'll eventually see this change, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
I
Minnesota. Are they done at QB? What are they gonna do?
It's yeah, no, they're not done. I mean, it's got to be a quarterback in the draft. I would assume they're going to move up and draft somebody, unless something crazy happens once again and Fields goes to Minnesota. I mean, who knows? It's not a good situation for right now. Not until they
Dude,
improve.
dude. Okay, Bryce says Pat was frozen. So is me. Um,
I don't
Fields
like
is
it right
running
now.
out of Fields is running out of landing spots. It's getting scary. And actually,
He's got
Adam
to be
called
better than.
this.
It's just crazy to me that the NFL and these experts and coaches and whoever thinks Sam Darnold's better than Justin Fields. There's just no way. I mean, you couldn't convince me that. How?
The man is seeing ghosts.
Did he did he put like a spell on people? Did people not realize he was terrible on the New York Jets? I mean,
Yeah,
people like
Fields.
forgot.
No one wants to give up the draft capital. No one wants to give up the draft capital. It'll be interesting because he could end up as a backup this year. But
It would be like an awful thing for fantasy fans, to see that.
yeah, that would be pain. That'd be max pain. I hope he does end up in Minnesota. I think that'd be
And
that'd be
I
a
don't really
killer landing
necessarily have a
spot.
high exposure to him either. I'm at like 6% on Fields, but like I still
Mhm.
think like he's an exciting player to watch. Like I don't understand all of it, man. I think yeah, of course he's a little inaccurate, but he is a mobile quarterback threat. I mean, that kind of comes with the territory a little bit.
Mhm.
There is a little trade-off to, these super athletic quarterbacks outside. We're talking like the elite guys like Allen and Mahomes.
Yeah.
Like no one's saying he's supposed to be that level, right?
No. No. He has like Fields has the rushing upside. Like he can actually provide a pretty good floor and a decent ceiling if he gets the right landing spot. Chicago was sometimes you need a change of scenery. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see if he finds that change of scenery somewhere and he's the QB1 on the team. That could be the new worry for Justin Fields.
You give Fields Justin Jefferson, I'm telling you, the guy's going to be pretty good.
I'd agree. Uh, interesting little tweet I saw today about Troy Franklin. Here's a little nugget for everyone that stayed with us. On his pro day, he tipped the scale just under 184 pounds. It's up 8 pounds from the combine. And then it also is reported that Franklin was suffering from the flu in the lead up to the combine and lost weight. And this is from Tony Pauline on Twitter. So I've been adding to Troy Franklin as he's fallen, been getting him around 110, 114 in the last couple of days, kind of adding to those shares. And that's probably actually closer to where he started before the pre-combine hype. And then he comes in super light, and now he's getting comped to Tyquan Thornton, who
Yeah.
it's it, it,
And he
it
had a pretty
fits body
impressive,
wise.
he had a good combine, right?
He came in very light. He had a decent combine, but the weight is,
Was it worse than
176.
people were expecting or about
It
what
was
people
lighter.
expected?
It was lighter than with his frame.
Not his weight, just his overall like performance, like his 40 time and all that. I thought he, didn't
Yeah,
test horrible.
it was basically, I think it wasn't a terrible combine. No, it wasn't a terrible combine. I think it was more the weight concerns, and
Arachi
then
just said that his agility was trash for his size. So okay,
was it
but when you have the flu, you know, um, look, if I had the flu, the last thing I want to do is run a combine. More power to him, right?
fun fact, I had the flu during a state championship game, high school hockey.
And how'd you do? Were
We
you
won. We
puking from
won.
the bench?
Ah, shit. I was white. Um, yeah, let's see. We got some other big news. If anyone wants to ask their questions about free agency in the chat, anything we haven't covered yet, obviously Barkley to the Eagles is one that I covered yesterday, but I've seen him go as early as pick 12, pick 13.
Devontae Parker just signed too
Yeah, he got a 1-year deal.
to the Eagles.
It's okay. Honestly, that's probably better for Devonta Smith. That's probably better for AJ Brown, knowing that uh, they're maybe a little less likely to bring in a receiver in the first
I think
few.
he's just a locker room guy, if I'm being honest. Maybe like a charity case almost. I can't see him, they like these old guys apparently. They had Julio
Mhm.
Jones. Now they got Devontae Parker. It's I don't know.
Patriots and the Giants. I really hope we get a Drew Lock versus Jacoby Brissett game. That's what I'm looking forward to this year. This way we can wager a stupid amount on this game. Um,
Yeah,
this would be
definitely
close.
take the under. You can take that before the game even starts. Lock
3-0.
it in now.
Calvin Ridley to the Patriots would be it would be tough for Ridley's value based on where he's going, but he instantly would become wide receiver 1. He would get a fresh start with the rookie QB. Would it be the worst thing?
I would hate it, honestly. I mean, for two reasons. I think it hurts Ridley's overall ceiling, but it also kills my Demario Douglas bags. So I get shot like twice in the chest if that happens.
What's the Demario Douglas exposure at?
Oh,
Come
it's
on.
high. It's I think he's my third highest at this point. Um, it is 32.1%.
Dude, I told you
I'm living in
guys.
I'm
He's
living in Demario Douglas's world,
I
and you're gonna
told
have
you
to
guys,
deal
Nick
with it.
Nick Nick is a Patriots fan. I knew it. You gotta see the closet. It's a shrine. Demario Douglas shrine in there. It's like, hey Arnold.
I like him,
Can't
man.
miss it to Texans.
I do.
Giuseppe to the
What did
Bengals
you like? Did you
recovered.
did you like Gibson the signing?
Yeah. Dude, that's a great spot. That's a great spot for his ADP, right? He's gonna go in, he's gonna have a third down role. He might have a change of pace role on top of that, you would assume as well. So maybe get like a 30-70 like share
Yeah,
of the carries, and then you have the potential of a Stevenson injury coming back from an injury last year. Where you were getting him was free, especially at the start of drafts. He's in my top 3 exposures, up there
yeah.
with
That's what I was
Mooney.
gonna say. It's cool for you because you were pretty high on him for his ADP, and now he goes to your team. So you almost get
Yeah.
like it's like a double win for you. You get to root
Yeah,
on
yeah,
one
yeah.
of your higher player exposures and your team at the same time.
And if he wins us a boatload of money, maybe I'll grab a little Antonio Gibson jersey. But,
Yeah, that would be nice.
yeah, he's actually my number 1 he's actually my number 1 overall drafted player at 38%. That being said, I'm probably not gonna chase him up the board just based on where we got him. He still has room to move, I will admit. He probably still has room to move. I see people reaching it for him at, like, the 1 like, this range. I'm not gonna chase him up there. But, if you're getting him close to ADP at 185, I think it's fine.
It also helps that Belichick's not there because Gibson is like a fumble machine sometimes. And if he was still there,
Sometimes.
Gibson would be cut by like the second week.
Yeah. Yeah, preseason. He'd already be in the doghouse in the
Yeah,
preseason for
you can't
sure.
fumble with Bill Belichick, and that was his biggest problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Antonio Gibson is a big winner, I think, and it's hard to see New England touch it running back this year. Like, they bring in Gibson, they have Stevenson. Running back isn't a need on this team anymore. So to have some certainty about how this backfield is going to be this season is nice, especially you're getting certainty on a player that goes to pick 185, and he was a player that was free. And he fits certain builds. So like early in the offseason, when you're trying to create these teams, and maybe you're adding a bunch of rookies that you like Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, Ray Davis,
Yeah,
those are the teams I was like, okay, Antonio Gibson will fit this build. All I need him to do is catch, 60 balls or whatever, have 60 targets, catch 40 balls, and maybe get, get 100 touches basically. And I think he's easily gonna top that in New England.
do you think this
So
phases out Kevin Harris completely?
Yeah, likely.
because
Likely.
I liked him. I thought he was a decent player. I mean,
I s he's
for
still a
being a
good depth
backup.
he's a good depth chart guy.
Yeah,
So, that's basically where he's headed in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. He's gonna be buried behind them.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's with the Vikings. They can't be done at QB with this. They can't be.
Yeah, it's just like having Jacoby Brissett. Like, yeah, he's an okay quarterback, but he's not a
Mhm.
quarterback I want starting.
Right.
I don't even like Minshew to the Raiders. Like all these
Dude,
guys that got signed
that
before trying to trade for Fields to me is crazy. But
they probably just listened to the price and were like, "Yeah, we're out." That's what I assume happened there.
yeah, yeah,
But, how about we'll wrap it up in a few. Noah Brown still going in what, 220s, 229. He's being reached on, I think, on in sharper rooms. Would you put Noah Brown above Tyler Boyd right now?
no,
Interesting.
I I don't know. I don't have too much Noah Brown. I know I have a little bit
Mhm.
of him, and I only did it when I stacked Shroud for that upside, you know, finals game.
Yeah.
That narrative that Noah Brown breaks the slate over Tank Dell and Nico Collins.
Nico.
And that's the upside to having that guy because these guys are being drafted in the first and second round. You're getting Noah Brown for free in the end, and if he's
Mhm.
the actual piece you needed for some reason, like you don't blow that capital on those two players. You get it somewhere else, sort of thing. But I think from like a fantasy point of view, like overall, he didn't really like, in my opinion, did he do that well until like the injuries started happening?
No, no, he needed the injuries to sort of get his limelight a little bit.
Yeah,
I
so
think
I
he
think
had
he's
2
like
spike weeks.
he's definitely capped to an extent, and I think there's just other players. Even guys like Tyler Boyd. I know you don't like him because he's a floor guy. He's not really so much a ceiling play, but I do think overall throughout the year he would put up more points than Noah Brown.
Mhm.
You know,
I think Tyler Boyd fits certain teams. I have 9%. Um, I think he can help you with certain teams where you're drafting maybe a lot of rookies to sort of bridge that early season, and it'll depend where he lands, right? There is always that, he could get a nuts landing spot like KC, so I do try to be over 8% on players like that, but yeah, I'm
would you
not
dr- would
overly.
you would you draft a guy like Noah Brown naked unless you had Shroud? Like,
No, 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 but
okay,
I not like way above ADP. I do I do think with Stroud, I would probably take him over Boyd.
okay, yeah, okay, but I see the logic in doing that at least.
Yeah. Javon Baker's a fun click in this range too. Jermaine Burton is in my top expos
Yeah, even
officially.
guys like I'd just rather take a shot on like a rookie like Burden over Noah Brown.
Mhm.
For being honest, Brendan Rice is another one that I've gotten a high exposure to.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm sticking to my guns on the tape on Brendan Rice. I wasn't wowed, but sticking to my guns this season.
yeah.
That was
Oh,
my
I get that.
uh of my top exposures, five. My first five are all running backs, and then it's Mooney as my number one receiver, then Trevor Lawrence at QB.
Do you know what your highest like first round pick would be?
My highest say that again. My highest
So
first
your
round
highest
pick.
exposure to like a first round player.
It's probably Garrett Wilson.
Okay.
Honestly, I've been catching up on the Lamb shares. I'm getting Lamb at 3. People are going, I'm getting the 3 spot. People going like Brees Hall at 1 or 2, doing some weird shit. And I've really caught up this last couple weeks on CD Lamb. I'm at like 13%, 14%. So maybe it is, let's see, maybe it is CD Lamb. Yeah, 14% Lamb, but that's just luck. And then
Yeah.
I'm really suffering at pick 3 through 5. Like Hill, Jefferson, I'm at like 3 to 4% because I'm just not really getting enough of these clicks that I'd rather chase at 8. I'd rather Brees Hall at 8.
It's hard to have
Uh,
a high like CeeDee Lamb exposure unless you're getting the 1-2 every draft, and that's the guy you want to target. Like
yeah,
outside of that, you get lucky when he falls a couple picks after two.
yeah,
Um,
I'm getting a lot of that. But Garrett Wilson on the back end is my next highest at 12%,
yeah, I like that.
and I have him ranked probably pretty close to Puka. If I want Puka exposure, I have to take him around this range, but I am tempted to put it like this.
Yeah, we look the same way. Our exposures in terms of Puka, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, like they're
Yeah.
DJ Moore for me is up there as well. But those receivers are guys that I was clicking a lot.
Yeah. All right, Nick. Anything that we missed that comes to mind before we wrap it up?
No, I mean just outside of maybe talking some players that haven't signed yet. Like I'm still interested in seeing how J.K. Dobbins. I'm still high on J.K. So I know he's not going to Baltimore now that they have Derrick Henry, which I
That's my ex.
expected. I expected that to happen, that he wasn't going to be a Raven anyway.
Mm,
But I think there's a chance. There's still teams that he can carve out a role on. So
yep.
outside of maybe AJ Dillon, there's some guys that we got to keep watch of, see what happens. Kamara, I guess, is a big one.
Kamara seems more likely to stay now with the current news. That's sort of the way I'm seeing that one. I think it might actually be like good. All these pieces moving around.
So you don't
That's
like that for your Keandre Miller, do you?
no, I can't. Kendrick Miller, you're getting him at a fine price. Look, these are all changes. You're getting a lot of change of pace running backs in this range. You're getting a lot of RB2s on their team in this range. And I was drafting him at 165 to start. So
Got it.
I'm not, uh, let's see. He's in my top five. He's got to be. Kendrick
But
Miller
do
is
you think do you think
my
people
third
were
highest.
drafting this guy hope with the upside that Kamara, wasn't going to be there and he could
There's
actually
that.
a
That's,
larger
I,
role?
I think that's baked in, but I still believe Kendrick Miller would be more efficient on first and second down than Kamara will. And I think there is a chance with Kamara being there that he takes over that role by the end of the season, if not sooner.
Okay.
So that's like the upside to Kendrick Miller, in my opinion. And obviously, last year was a mess with how he entered the year hurt.
Yeah.
And oh god, Justin Jefferson to the Bengals. I just had to refresh. Like,
Oh, one other
don't do
name
that.
while you're I'm just staring at him. Jerome Ford. The Browns just signed Akeem Hines to their team. So that's a little interesting that they're bringing in like a gadget guy with Ford already there.
Mhm.
Um, because in my opinion, Ford was more of the gadget guy to Chubb. So are they bringing? Am I reading too much into this? You think? Are they bringing in Hines because they maybe expect Chubb's not
Maybe
good
he
to
missed his
go,
time, or
and
maybe he missed his
they want
time.
to have like a Ford and Hines timeshare here, or is he just they're throwing darts at players? Let's bring in a guy who can maybe be a special teams player for us, because that could be the narrative too.
Yeah, maybe there's a few things that could be going on there. I think you're pretty spot on. Like maybe Nick Chubb's not. They see that his injury progress is not going to be, ready for, uh, ready for the season, and they need to add depth to this room. Maybe they don't want to spend draft capital at RB, and they still want to keep Chubb on the team. Like there could be multiple things going on there. But
Yeah,
I like Ford. Nothing crazy here, like 4 yards per carry, but uh, can get there in the passing game too. And he had a couple explosive plays that were fun. 5 receiving touchdowns. You expect that to drop, I would
I
think,
think he
but
had one game with Flacco where he caught like 2 or 3 touchdowns in a single game.
yeah, yeah. There was man. What week was that? It was like week
It
16. It
was
was during
it
the
was it was
playoffs, I
it was
believe.
right. It was right before. Yeah, yeah.
Crazy, but yeah, Kamara probably a sneaky winner, but I'm still leveraging the other side with Kendra.
So are you fading Kamara then?
Yeah, really only taking him when he falls, and I feel like it makes sense for my roster. But
Yeah, yeah. I'm
I'm
with you on that.
I'm pretty much full fading though.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But when you do that, I think it is smart to at least leverage the other side. Like if you're not taking one player, okay, well, what's the outcome? How does that player not hit? Does someone else hit? Does the offense just
Or
fail
it could
fail in
just be
general?
ugly for both sides. Like that's kind of
Yep,
how I've taken the Bears running backs. I didn't really take any of them. I mean, I had DeAndre Swift shares, not knowing he was going to be a Bear, so that works out. But
right.
before DeAndre Swift, I didn't want any part of that committee. And then the Broncos, like I stayed away from the Broncos running backs just because I was like, I, it's not a great offense, and the running back room is messy to begin with. So
Right. All right, guys. If you enjoyed tonight's live stream, go down, slap the like, follow Nick on Twitter at NF42. And yeah, Nick, you got anything for the people before we head out?
no, good. Thanks for having me, man. Fun talking shop again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. There's a lot to unpack. And now hopefully we just get a little good news for Curtis Samuel. Nice little landing spot in KC. What's your exposure to Curtis Samuel, by the way? Because
Not
that's
very
like the Demario Douglas range.
not very high.
Yeah.
If 3%.
Okay. All right.
So
Yeah. So you don't want you're like, all right, go to the Giants.
I mean, look, I'd be happy for him. I just, I when you're drafting so early, like how am I supposed to figure out when I'm doing drafts like 2 months ago that this guy is a candidate for the Chiefs? Like anybody could be picked up by them at like that's a free agent.
Accurate.
So
Accurate.
yeah, I mean it's just grabbing other guys that I liked that I that I liked in their systems already, like you said, Demario. So
And last point before we head out, like that feeds off of that. Drafting around news is super important. That lull period, like the best times to draft are contests open when ADPs are new and fresh, and then you're getting a lull period of lack of information. Unless you're trying to catch up on certain exposures, you probably should be waiting for some news to draft. That's when you're going to get, you know, that's when you're going to
yeah,
get more certainty on situations and look out. Like, do you wish you had more drafts to do right now?
yeah, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean, I wish I could like. I'm gonna stick to my guns with Michael Wilson for this contest at least. But if I could, like if I could like take a little bit of percentage out of it and then throw it into like a few other players at this point, like I'd be happy with that. Um,
Lad and Xavier Worthy were two that I was trying to get you to click.
and I'm reaching
Alright,
on Michael
it's
Wilson in
alright.
drafts too. So I mean, it is what it is. It's something like, look, man, I even got the jersey going for the
Lean in.
guy. I'm into it for for this contest at least. There's plenty of other
Yeah,
contests. Like
yeah.
I'm never gonna do this in a best ball mania format.
Mhm.
I just wanted to have fun doing like the big board like a different way, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, it's cool leaning into your takes on especially on a contest. Short time frame, new contests come open, and then it's like stocks. You get your shares to players in different time frames. So
Yeah.
appreciate everyone coming out, watching the show, joining us. Before you leave, slap the like, hit the sub. We'll catch you on the next one. Pounders.